There we go. Probably shared the wrong link. Yep. All right. All right, guys, what's up? This is Crypto John from the Alpha Beta Report. We're going to go live here in just a couple minutes. I started the recording just a little bit early. Let people hop on here, and we'll actually start talking about the algorithm, the setup for that, and how I use it here in just a couple of minutes. So if you're watching the recording, you can go ahead and skip ahead 3 or 4 minutes. That's when we'll dive into everything. For now, we're just going to kind of sit and wait as people hop in here. Take a look at YouTube, make sure everything's running okay. First time we've started streaming on YouTube. So if we experience any technical difficulties here, I apologize ahead of time. All right, so we're going to talk about the algorithm quite a bit, but for any of you guys that are watching this, live or recorded, if you have questions about any of the indicators that I use, questions about the market, about crypto, whatever, feel free to ask in the live chat. I'll address them on the stream. If you guys have questions for me and you're watching this on the recording, send me a message on Facebook, on Discord, wherever. I'll make sure that you guys know how to get a hold of me. But send me your questions. I'm more than happy to answer whatever questions you might have come up. We want to talk through whatever hurdles you're having with trading crypto. The more people I can get involved with this, I think the better, because it's really a great opportunity. It's a great market to play around with. All right, give it another couple of minutes here, and we'll get started. This stream is brought to you by Jocko Go, who I've been trying to get sponsorship from for a few months now for jiu-jitsu. Few months now for jiu-jitsu. All right, another minute here, and then we will dive in. All right, so it is 3:01. So for anyone who is watching live, anyone who's watching the recording, thank you. Appreciate your time this afternoon. Today, my goal is to go over how the Alpha Beta Report algorithm gets set up, some of the default settings for it, how we in the Alpha Beta Report are using it, how it was developed, kind of the thinking behind the strategy that it uses. Talk through troubleshooting a couple of things with it, because I know there's some guys that are using this on different tickers, maybe some tickers that we haven't tested this on. That's fine. It's designed so that we can adjust it. We can use it for any ticker that is really out there that has volume. So there's some tweaking to be done. So we'll talk about how I do that, how I do my back testing and stuff. But we're just going to kind of dive right in, and I've brought up TradingView to just kind of look at a very simple chart. We're looking at a 5-minute Bitcoin chart here, and we're just going to kind of go through and talk about what it looks like when you first get the algorithm, how to set it up, and we'll just kind of go from there. So when you first get the algorithm, it's going to show up in your invite only indicators. Now, if you have TradingView open and you go to the website, alphabetareport.com, and you subscribe to the algo, it's an automated process to get it assigned to your TradingView account. It should only take a few minutes, but you may have to sign out and then sign back in to your TradingView for it to actually show up. So if you go up to the indicators right here on the top of the chart, under your invite only scripts, you're going to see this CryptoJohn ABR algo v1.1. That version number might change. Obviously, this is the current version. So you're going to basically just click that, and it adds it to your chart, and all kinds of stuff pop up here, right? You've got this strategy tester that pops up down on the bottom. You have all of these little indicators that pop up on the chart. So first thing we got to do is we got to clean this up. There's a lot of defaults that are set on this that are either just TradingView defaults that we have to go in and adjust because they're kind of ugly, in my opinion. You can leave them if you want. And then the default settings on the actual inputs for this, we also want to adjust based on the time frame that you're using this on. So if you're going to use this on, say, a 5-minute chart, you're going to use different settings than you would if you were looking at a 4-hour chart, right? So the first thing that I like to do is go into this style, and then you can adjust the colors of the EMAs that it puts on there, and then adjust the style of the long and short messages as well. But I like to turn off trades on chart, signal labels, and quantity, because it just adds, if you'll notice, these little indicators on the chart and these little text labels that really don't mean anything to me. So I just get rid of them because they're clutter, and I've already got enough stuff on my chart. Beyond that, like I said, you can adjust the colors and the thickness of the lines and all that stuff, but that's all your preference. The inputs are really the important thing, because this is going to determine what it's actually looking for to give you your long and short entries and exits. In the Discord that you get access to when you subscribe to this algorithm, the algo support channel has got some pinned messages with the default settings that I use for different time frames. And so basically, I'm just going to copy and paste out of those settings for, in this case, the 5-minute time frame. So the first thing we do is we turn on this volume filter. The volume filter is telling the algorithm, I only want you to give me an entry indication if the candle that would trigger an entry had above average volume. And we define that using a simple moving average on volume. In this case, it defaults to 20. We want to set it to 10. And I usually use 10 for most time frames. There's a few different differences in that we can talk about, but 10 is fairly consistent for me. Now, I mentioned earlier, the algorithm's designed so that you can make it work on pretty much any ticker that has volume, right? Well, that's important. If it doesn't have volume, or if it has very irregular volume, maybe it's not appropriate, or at the very least, maybe you want to turn off that volume filter, because it's going to be looking for something that doesn't make sense and things that have very erratic volume. That's the case with a lot of cryptos. When we look at different crypto tickers, things that have really erratic volume, your average is going to be something wild looking. But if you're on Bitcoin or Ethereum or one of the high caps, you've got pretty consistent volume, and that moving average actually means something, right? Then we have our entry and exit confirmation candles. So what these are, when the algorithm detects a candle that would trigger an entry, for entry, it'll wait this number of candles. And if all the conditions are still met for an entry, then it will signal an entry. And then on the exit, same deal, only the inverse, right? If it sees the conditions that are appropriate for an exit, it's going to wait this many candles before it actually triggers that exit signal. So this is to filter out basically wicks that maybe you get a candle that runs up and it closes just above your entry level, and that would normally signal an entry, but then it immediately gets pushed back. Well, with this confirmation candles setting, you can account for some of that and try to filter out some of the noise. And that's really the idea here, is get rid of some of the noise. All right, so for the 5-minute time frame, we use 1 entry confirmation candle and then 3 on the exit. So this basically helps us to filter out a lot of the noise that we see, especially on the lower time frame charts. Then you have 4 different EMAs that get set up. You have an entry EMA, you have a comeback EMA, and then you have 2 confirmation EMAs. So here's how this basically works. Your entry EMA, the white line that's represented on this chart, that's what's going to determine whether you get an entry signal. So if you have a price close above that entry EMA, that signals that it's time to enter a long. If you have price that closes below your entry EMA, it gives you a short entry signal. Now, obviously, it can't just do that every single time, which is why we have the other EMAs that filter when we're looking for longs, when are we looking for shorts. So the first one, your confirmation EMA 1, this is meant to be, really both of these are meant to be longer period moving averages that help to identify what the primary trend is. We always want to trade in the direction of the trend. And that really doesn't change based on what strategy you're using. When you're doing day trading, you want to go with the trend, right? It's one of the things that's a foundational rule of this art. You don't fight the trend. And so these long-term EMAs help us to determine when we are trading with the trend. So basically, if you have these 2 confirmation EMAs, by default, they're set to 100 and 200. If these EMAs are below and rising, if they're below your entry EMA and rising, that would indicate that we're in a long bias, so to speak, and the primary trend is pointing up, right? And so it's going to look for long entries. On the inverse, if we're trading below those, well, that would imply that we have a bearish bias and we have a short bias. So it's going to be looking for short entries. So basically, if we're below these EMAs, it's looking for shorts. If we're above them, it's looking for longs. So these are your long-term filters, if you will. For the 5-minute, we use by default 50 and 200 for these. And then we look at the entry EMA. So how fast do I want this to be looking for my entries, right? How fast do I want it to look for a trend change, so to speak, to give me that indication for an entry? By default, we use 10, so very short period EMA for the 5-minute. And then you have the comeback EMA. The purpose of the comeback EMA is to give you your exit signal. It's easy enough to say, okay, I've closed above my short-term EMA and we're above or below my confirmation EMAs. I'm going to enter a position. Now we need to have a signal that identifies when we're going to exit that position. And so that's what this comeback EMA represents. For the 5-minute, our default is 21. So again, a little bit shorter of a period. One of the things that I've talked about to a few of the guys that are using this, your comeback EMA can actually be pretty similar to your confirmation EMA. Typically, the shorter time frame one is one of the ones that people will look to use. And even some of the defaults for like the longer period charts, like if we're looking at like a daily chart, daily candle chart, you might have like your comeback EMA and your first confirmation EMA set very close. I would recommend that you do not set them to the same value. So if your confirmation EMA is 21, make your comeback EMA 20, something like that. You just don't want them to be the exact same number. And that's just because it can give you some kind of strange signals and some missed signals as well when they're exactly the same, just because of some nuances about how TradingView works. It's not because the math is wrong. It's just some nuances about how it looks at candle closes when you're looking at two identical EMAs that are being used for different things. So just set them one period off from one another and it should be fine. So these are the defaults that I use for the 5-minute time frame. We'll talk about the longer time frames here in a little bit, but now that I have this set, I just say okay, and now I can see the signals that it's generating on the chart. So it's showing me, all right, here's your short, here's where you exit, short, exit, long, exit, short, etc. So then I can take this and I can apply other indicators on top of this as my confirmation filters. Maybe I like to use volume profiles. I do. So we can apply other indicators and use this as just another layer of confirmation. And that's the whole idea here. Think about what we've done with this algorithm. Basically, all we've done is said, I want to look at several different EMAs and identify conditions where it's looking like a good time to enter with the trend. And then also identify when it seems like the trend may be changing and it's time for me to exit, right? We filtered that with candle confirmation. We filtered that with volume. And so really we've wrapped up a bunch of different things into this one indicator that is now giving us simple, long, short indications on the chart to let us know when it might be a good idea to enter a trade. This is not something that is meant to be used exclusively. There's always other indicators that we can look at on top of this. But now that I have this, I can set up alerts within TradingView to make it really easy for me to know which charts I should be paying attention to throughout the day more than others. There's a lot of different cryptos that I follow. If I look at one of my longer watch lists, right, there's a bunch of different tickers that I follow on a regular basis. And I wake up in the morning and I don't want to have to go through all of these charts and figure out which ones I want to pay attention to that day. There are some wonderful tools on TradingView like the Crypto Screener that lets me filter down and find activity for the day. But one of the things that I can do is I can set the algorithm up on several different tickers that are of interest to me, and then I can set alerts throughout the day. I'll know which ones have activity that I might be interested in. And so the way that I do that, if you just select anywhere on the indicator, the EMAs, these signals, whatever, and just right click on it in TradingView, you can add an alert. This alert is going to be specific to the time frame that you've selected and the settings that we just went through. Then I can go to my notifications and I can say notify on app. I can use a webhook and I can send it into the Discord, which for a lot of the trades that I'm doing now, I'll turn this on in the morning so you guys can see the messages coming into the Discord as those are happening. You can send yourself an email. You can have it pop up and play a sound on your computer if you're sitting there all day, however you want to do that. For me, I use the TradingView app. It's a great app. Makes it very easy for me to quickly review a chart. So I just have it send me a notification on the app. So then if it gives me a signal, like this short signal on Bitcoin a little while ago, my phone will buzz, I'll take a look, open up the chart right from the alert, and then I can quickly review anything else that I might want to about that chart. Look at my other indicators, look at fundamentals, look at whatever else I use to determine whether I should be entering a trade. And then also from my phone, I can use the KuCoin mobile app or the exchange of your choice, and I can go in and execute a trade right there. That's what I've been doing for this small account challenge that we've been doing since the start of the month, has been getting alerts on my phone, checking the chart, making sure it matches the parameters that I care about, which is a lot easier because this is taking care of several of the parameters that I was looking for manually before, and then executing a trade, setting my bracket through KuCoin because I've been trading crypto futures through KuCoin. So think of the algorithm as really just a consolidation of several different indicators that we're using to make it simpler to identify opportune times to enter into trades. For anyone who is live, that's joined me since the start here, thank you. If you have any questions as we're going through this stuff, feel free to throw them into the chat. I'll keep an eye on that, answer any questions that you guys have about the algorithm or about anything else to do with what we do at Alpha Beta Report, trading, what I do. I'm more than happy to diverge into whatever's most useful for you guys. This is recorded as well. Once again, for anyone who's watching the recording, feel free to reach out to me, ask me your questions. I'll make sure that you have ways to get in touch with me through Facebook, Discord, email, however you want to. All right, so let's look at some of the higher time frames. And then we'll talk through how I actually have used this on a couple of tickers in the last week here. So if we switch this up and say, okay, let's look at a 1 hour time frame. Now, it's still set to the settings that we use from the 5 minute, right? And I mean, just at a glance, yes, it looks like it's giving me pretty good signals, but you can generally do better. How do you know how good it's doing, though, without doing some pretty rigorous back testing? Well, there are a few different ways that you can back test through TradingView. The strategy tester, I'd really encourage you to not pay too much attention to. The math that this uses is kind of flawed, and it's actually kind of hard to make it give you a realistic representation of how good an indicator is or a strategy is at being profitable. So I wouldn't encourage you to use the strategy tester. There is a deep back tester that you can use on TradingView. It's a little bit better. Generally speaking, though, because primarily what I trade is crypto, conditions in crypto are not consistent. And so backtesting results are not going to be consistent or realistic either. That's a difficulty you're going to have to deal with a lot of different assets, but crypto in particular. If there's a fundamental change in the markets, well, if conditions aren't the same, then gauging how well a strategy did under a certain set of conditions is not going to be accurate projected into an environment where we have different conditions. So the best thing to do is to test it within the current or similar trends manually. And that can be kind of laborious. It can take a little bit of time, but it's the best way to do this. And this is something I would encourage you to do on any ticker that you want to apply this to. So we start by setting our inputs to whatever we want to use for the hourly. I'll set it to the defaults we recommend, which are fairly similar to the 5 minute actually. So we have 10 for our volume filter. We have 1 and 3 for our entry and exit confirmation candles. Our entry EMA, we back off a little bit. We use 20. The comeback, we set to 50. And then our confirmation EMA number 1, we actually use a lower time frame for this, and then 200 for the second one. These are the defaults that from my back testing before we launched the algo, showed pretty consistently the best results, right? This was something that I ran on a bunch of tickers over time and tried to find something that was pretty consistently good to start with. From here, we want to test it and tweak it and see how it changes the entry signals that it gives us. So maybe I look at Bitcoin and I look at this, most recent parabolic run, right? And I see, okay, well, it looks like it's giving me some pretty good fat tail winners, right? It's giving me a couple of good long entries. Maybe I want to test this using a trailing stop instead of using the exit signals here. Maybe I want to test it using longer confirmation EMAs or a longer comeback EMA or something like that to try to adjust it to how the current trend has behaved. Based on that, you can see, and literally I use Excel to do this, you can see how successful the trades are over time, measure the drawdown that it gives you, and assess how successful it is on that ticker. Then once you have settings that you're pretty comfortable with, let it run for a few days, turn on the alerts, go in and see if it's if it is consistently profitable and it has drawdowns that are within your acceptable range, right? Based on your own risk appetite. The general rule of thumb when you're developing any strategy, not just using a strategy like this, but anytime that you're developing a strategy, you want to make sure that it would still be successful. It would still be profitable for you to use that strategy if it was half as profitable and had twice as much drawdown as what you see in your back testing. Because if that's the case, if you have a strategy that would still be profitable if it was half as profitable and had twice the drawdown, then you've probably got a winner, right? You should never expect a moving average based strategy to give you more wins than losses, but you should expect a good moving average based strategy to have wins that dramatically outsize your losses. You can see just from this quick representation of what we've done here, there's a lot of trades on here, and several of these trades probably have a loss. A couple of these, you might even see a loss of like 0.5%, maybe 1% on a couple of these, right? But because the good wins dramatically outsize the losses, because you have trades that hit like this, where you're making 20%, you can afford to have several of those small losses in a row, right? And that's how moving average strategies work. Because moving averages are trying to project price action in the future based on past information, there's always going to be a lag. There's always going to be some flaws. And one of the flaws with them is it is very, very hard to get a moving average based strategy that's going to give you, 1-to-1 wins and losses or better. The best moving average based strategies that are out there, you're going to have 30 to 35% wins. So as long as you are seeing wins that are, more than 3 times the size of your average losses, you're still going to be profitable. So keep that in mind as you're back testing this. If you see it have a string of trades that are all, enter and then get stop lossed out for 0.5% or whatever it is, just keep in mind that over time, the moving average based strategy should win. All right, so how have I actually been using this? Well, I mean, it's pretty simple, right? So for the most part, for this small account challenge I've been using the 5-minute chart. So if I go in, we'll set our settings back to what they were for the 5-minute. So we have 10 on the entry EMA, we have 21 on the comeback, and then 50 and 200, right? So I start with this, and then I go and look at whatever ticker it is that I want to follow. So let's take this one. This is one I was looking at earlier this morning, right? So again, I'd go through the process, and I'd go through this process on every ticker that I do this for, where I evaluate the settings, I test the profitability, test the drawdown, make sure it's within the acceptable parameters. And that can sometimes take me, a couple of hours, depending on, what ticker I'm looking at. Like Ethereum, I've got a pretty good handle on how I like it set up for Ethereum. So that one doesn't take me very long. If I want to trade Ethereum for the day, I just switch over to those settings and I'm good. But on new tickers especially, I want to spend a little bit more time doing my due diligence with those, right? So I'll spend time getting my settings the way that I want, set up the alert on my phone, and then when I come in and I'm actually looking at those, I will use candle confirmation, so candle reads. I'm looking for short-term candle patterns, looking for, ascending or descending wedges, head and shoulders patterns, other candle patterns like the 1 and 2 candle patterns that you'll see, candle reversal signals, things like that. I really like for scalping, which is basically what I am doing for this small account challenge. I really like using candle reads because they can be very consistent, right? And so I'll look for that. I'll look for the overall trend. So if I'm signaling on the 5-minute, I want to back out and look at the 1 hour. And I want to see, okay, on the 1 hour, if I were to set the algorithm up for the 1 hour, does it agree? Is the longer trend in line with the 5-minute trend? Because if we're in a downtrend on the 1 hour, but we're in an uptrend on the 5-minute, the 1 hour trend is going to be stronger. And so I really don't want to enter a long position if the 1 hour trend is still showing me that it's down, right? So that's something that I'll look for. And then besides that, I'll look at things like my volume profile, my stochastics. If the stochastic is showing me that this is way overbought right now, then maybe I'm going to wait for a little bit if it's signaling along, or vice versa. If it's way oversold, maybe I want to wait and see it bounce before I enter a position there. Another thing that I'll use is more EMAs. So I just add more EMAs to the chart and I look for those key areas of support and resistance that are built around longer term EMAs. Look for EMA crosses, death crosses, golden crosses. Like I said, there's a huge number of different indicators that you can add on top of this. This is just meant to consolidate some of the key ones down into a simple signal that lets me know, hey, your parameters for all of this stuff, those are met. Now I can go check the chart and look at a couple of other things, decide very quickly if I want to enter a position or not. Beyond that, it's really just a matter of practicing. This is, in many ways, a pay-to-play game. You have a lot of different, trading tools and softwares and stuff out there, but fundamentally, you have to put a little bit of money into it to learn how to do this. What's really nice is that there are now some paper trading platforms that are very usable, not just for stocks and equities and all that stuff, but also for crypto. Crypto Hopper, not any affiliate of mine or anything. It's just a platform that I've started using lately. Crypto Hopper has a paper trading platform that you can use with pretty much any exchange at this point, any major exchange. So I'd encourage you to take a look at that for a paper trading platform. They've also got some really cool tools if you want to set up trading bots, some stuff that I've been playing around with, pretty exciting there. So it is a little bit of pay to play. There are paper trading platforms, but the nice thing about crypto, if I wanted to go and trade like E-minis or micros, any of this stuff, right? Some of the stuff that the guys in the Alpha Beta Report group trade frequently and trade very well. The amount of margin that you have to trade these tickers can be pretty high, pretty intimidating for someone who's just getting started, just coming in. But you don't have to start with something like this where you need, $1,400 or $14,000 worth of margin. If you start with crypto, we go to KuCoin, you can start trading crypto futures with $1. There's really no minimum for trading on crypto platforms. And so that's really nice, is the fact that you can actually trade with real money, but not so much that you're worried about losing it. And you can see how the exchange works. You can see how much you're losing to fees. You can test your strategies, and you can do it in a very realistic way. One of the drawbacks of paper trading platforms is they don't often replicate accurately what slippage is going to look like and what fees are going to do to your orders, because they'll just assume that your order is going to fill instantaneously and calculate the results based on that without accounting for slippage. And it's really hard to account for slippage when you're doing back testing as well. So doing it live is a really useful thing to be able to do. So KuCoin, again, not affiliated with them at all. It's just a platform that I've used for a while and have been very happy using, primarily because I can test different strategies by putting $1 in an account, and I can trade with it and see what percentage gains and losses I'm getting from it without risking any real money. So if you haven't set up an account on KuCoin, I would encourage you to do so and start playing around with it. If you're using the algorithm and you want to test it, that's a great place to start. Get your settings the way that you like them on TradingView, and then go try it on KuCoin and see the success rate that you have when you have to account for things like slippage and fees. All right, let's take a look and see if there is anything in the chat here. It doesn't look like it. So again, guys, if you have any questions, if there's other stuff that you want to look at, feel free to let me know. The algorithm is something that we developed based on what we had been doing for years up to this point. It's just that instead of having these simple short and long signals on a chart, I'd be looking at these EMAs and doing basically the same thing, just manually, right? I'd be looking and seeing, okay, I've got my shorter term EMAs crossing up. I have my longer term EMAs that are still pointing down, but now we're breaking above them. Now I want to start looking for longs, and we start playing based on those EMAs, and then looking for things like we were talking about volume confirmation, volume profiles, other things. The algorithm just gives me a way to simplify all of that, condense it down into something that is a lot easier to digest, right? So I hope that the algorithm has been useful to the folks that have been using it for this little while. It's been out so far. I hope you're starting to get the hang of it. Really wanted to do this primarily because I know that the initial setup can be a little bit confusing, especially if you haven't used TradingView very much. But hopefully this helps to clear up any of those questions you guys had around that. The default settings that are in the Discord, we have only set up defaults for 5 minutes, 1 hour, 4 hour, and 1 day. Those are the time frames that I typically trade on. And because I was the one that was doing most of the development and testing work on this, that's what I tested it on, is the time frames that I use. I have had a couple of people that have asked if we can look at doing defaults and recommendations for a few different time frames. There's some folks that really actively trade the 1 minute chart. They want to use it for that. That's fine. I've also got some folks that trade weekly and want to be able to use the algorithm for weekly signals. That's fine as well, right? I'm confident that this can work. This kind of strategy can work really regardless of the ticker you put it on and regardless of the time frame that you're using. You just have to adjust it to something that is appropriate for the scenario, and then test it diligently. So I'm going to work on those. The 1 minute, I think, is going to be the most challenging. Anytime that you go into the lower time frame charts, even the 5 minute at times, you get more noise, right? There's more candles, there's more noise, there's more wicks, there's just more data for you to absorb when you're looking at something like this. And your EMAs, they're going to move quite a bit more wildly on the 1 minute charts than they will on the longer time frame charts. So I'm going to work to develop some settings for this that I'm comfortable recommending, and I'm going to try to do it on ES specifically because that's what people have been asking about. I'm also going to create some settings based around Bitcoin and Ethereum. Part of the small account challenge that we haven't started yet, I was going to do 2 accounts. I am going to do 2 accounts. I have the futures account that I've been trading since the first. I'm also going to do a spot only account where I'm going to be trading exclusively Bitcoin. And by spot only, I don't mean long only, because there are inverse tokens that we can trade for Bitcoin and for Ethereum. And so that'll give me the opportunity to be able to go long or short without any margin requirements. And so I just wanted to kind of highlight how I would approach that with a small account, not wanting to use margin or leverage, right? And so I'll be doing that here soon. And I think that what I would like to do is have that 1 minute algo running and see how many of the trades I can base off of that. Just because, again, I think it'd be a good way to highlight the usage of the system. Up until this point with the small account challenge, there's been several trades that I took because the algorithm provided confirmation. All of the trades in the small account challenge are being recorded on this Google spreadsheet. And again, make sure that this link is available to anyone who wants to follow this challenge. But you can see in here, I mark which of these I have with the algo. And so you've got all of these signals in here that came from the algorithm, and those are the reasons that I took those trades. So the small account challenge so far going pretty well. We started with $100. We're closing in on 500 now after 10 days of trading. Everything that I've done on this, I've done from my phone, and I've spent, with the exception of 1 day, I've spent less than an hour looking at charts every day. So I'm pretty happy with how it's going so far. We're going to keep that going. I told Sean the other day, my goal is just to double the account every month and, kind of highlight, here's what you can do starting with $100. So the spot only one, I'm going to work on the algorithm a little bit more to get that 1 minute really kind of honed in the way that I want it. And then I'll start that. We're going to do $1,000 in an account. Like I said, spot only, no margin, no leverage, just doing Bitcoin. So we'll make it as simple as I possibly can. Outside of that, guys, this algorithm is really just the first step for us. We've got some other stuff that we are, actively working on. I want to be able to not just have like this one moving average based algorithm. I want to have several other tools that are available. We've already developed a bias algorithm that allows us to look for the primary reads that Sean has talked extensively about in Discord and to you guys in the group. So we've got an algorithm running that automatically feeds those alerts into the algo channel in Discord if you haven't seen those already. So we've got these tools that we're developing, and eventually what we're going to have is a bundle of different indicators that we'll be able to just kind of package together and say, all right, you've got a moving average based strategy, we'll have a momentum based strategy, we'll have different things that we actually use that are packaged up into something that's easy to digest. I've been trading crypto actively now for the last 6 years. There's a lot of stuff that I've learned. There's a lot of money that I have lost doing it wrong. And a lot of that had to do with having to learn how all of these things are actually supposed to be used. Like, how do I actually look at support and resistance? What should I actually do with moving averages, right? And it was a painful process for me at times learning how to do that. Because in 2017, there wasn't a paper trading platform. So it was all trading with real money. And so, I've definitely had some ups and downs throughout the years because of that. Going through the CMT training last year, getting through and passing CMT2, I learned a lot from that I was able to feed into this algorithm, and that now I'm able to feed into anyone that comes to me for training. So I'm happy about that. But I want to create a set of tools, not just to give you an easy way to trade, because I want you to understand how it works. I want you to understand why it says long here and not just trust that it says long and blindly trade that. I want you to use these as learning tools. And so we're working on a few others that over the next, hopefully, couple of months, since I'm taking a break from the CMT studying, I'll be able to get these out and just use them to do really what we started this group to do, which is educate and help people to find their own way to financial freedom, right? So without going off on too much more of a tangent, that's the goal, is to really be able to offer kind of a suite of different indicators that you can use to learn your own trading style, your own strategy. All right, so I doesn't look like any questions in the chat. It's fine. I might wrap this up just a little bit early, give you guys a little bit back from your afternoon. For everyone who's hopped on live, really appreciate your time. I hope that this was useful. Anyone that's watching the recording, again, hope it was useful. I hope that this helps to kind of explain how the algorithm gets set up, how I've been using it. But again, any questions you guys have, if you're running into problems with it, if it seems like it is not doing what you expect it to be doing, let me know. I want to hear about that. I want to get the feedback. We spent several months last year doing trials with this algorithm and letting people kind of poke and prod at it and find the holes and gaps in it. I'm perfectly happy to patch any holes that we find in it now. And I've got some plans for things to do to improve it based on feedback from people. So please don't hesitate to give us feedback. If there's something that you'd like to see added to this algorithm, let me know, because there's no idea that I'm not going to consider. We'd certainly like to hear what you would find useful in that algorithm. If you're part of the Discord group, take a look in the algo channels. I'm going to post this recording there. I'm going to make this available on Facebook as well for anyone who is not in Discord. And like I said, I'll make sure you know how to get a hold of me. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you have questions about the algo or anything else to do with trading or the Alpha Beta report. So guys, thanks once again. I really appreciate you hopping on and making time for this. Our goal at Alpha Beta Report is to educate and to help you guys see success. So if there is something that we can do to further that goal, please don't hesitate to let us know. Thanks again. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of the weekend.